Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Giants of Backlog podcast. I'm here joined by my buddies Jay and Paul. I'm John, your host. We are a heavy spoiler podcast, so if you haven't played the game that I'm about to announce and plan to, go ahead and pause the video and come back uh, so that you can see if your opinions on the game match up to what we thought. So this week, my choice was Celeste. Celeste is a 2D platformer where you play as the main protagonist Madeline, a girl battling anxiety and depression who must literally climb a mountain to overcome and then befriend her dark thoughts. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of the game, we always start with a icebreaker question. And this week, the icebreaker that I wanted to start with is what are your guys' general thoughts on 2D platformers? Your experiences with them uh, from childhood till now, and just general thoughts on the genre itself.
Yeah, I can start. So, as a kid, um, I got a Game Boy and my sister got a Game Boy. I got Pokemon, she got Mario. We did, share games back then. And so I got to play some Mario, and I just didn't like it as much as Pokemon. It was kind of boring, just jumping, and jumping, and jumping. 100 levels. My sister, 100% of that game, probably 3 or 4 times. She loved it, but for me, 2D platformers never really been my jam. I've played a handful because every now and then they get critical acclaim. Like I've played Ori and what was the other one you guys made me play? I forget. I thought we played a 2D platformer before.
We
Oh,
played
Cuphead.
Cuphead.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I dabble here and there, but it's not typically what I want to do when I sit down to relax after a hard day of work.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it before. I had a Game Boy. Um, Back in the days of Game Boy, it seemed like every game that came out was a 2D platformer. You had all these licensed games that were 2D platformers. One of the ones off the top of my head that I played a lot of was the Hey Arnold 2D platformer. And yeah, it's all about time jumps
Yeah.
and jumping on enemies' heads, Goomba
I,
stomping.
I remember playing Sweet Life of Zack and Cody 2D platformer for Game Boy Advance. It was pretty fun. And I do want to shout out 2D platformer that I actually love is Rayman. Those games are sick. Those are my favorite 2D platformer games. Why did they stop making those?
What's it
Ubisoft,
called?
dude.
Rayman?
Yeah, Rayman.
Ubisoft.
Ray?
Yeah. Take notes. Pick it.
I am
Coming
taking
up.
notes.
Those games rock. I don't know. I think they re-released them for modern consoles, right, Paul?
Yeah, I have Legends on PlayStation 5.
Yeah. That'd be fun to play. I'd be happy with that pick.
I am definitely going to pick that game one of these days. It is in my backlog. Um, you mentioned Mario. So Super Mario World on SNES was one of the first video games that I ever played as a kid. My parents had a SNES that stayed at our cottage up north. So anytime we'd go up north, I'd just be so excited because I'd get to play Super Nintendo and I'd get to play Super Mario World. And I played hundreds of hours of that game over and over. Even though it had a finite number of levels, I just love those games, dude. every Mario game since as well, pretty much. Um, Even some more recent ones. I recently played Hollow Knight, which is a great Metroidvania style 2D platformer, and I picked up Bloodstain Ritual of the Night, which is inspired by, and I think the game director of the original, no, not original, but Castlevania Symphony of the Night worked on that game, so that's on my backlog. I'll make you guys play that at some point. And Metroid Dread is another recent one that I played that comes to mind. So, big fan of this genre, John.
So, what's a Metroidvania? What's that mean?
It's a game that was inspired by Metroid, which is an old Nintendo franchise, or Castlevania, which is an old Konami franchise.
Gotcha. So they're all 2D platformers then? I guess it's something I might need to delve into.
The common theme is unlockable stuff, unlockable gear, weapons, abilities that you can then use to backtrack and reach areas that you weren't able to access earlier
Gotcha.
to get treasure or more weapons and abilities.
Interesting. Yeah, that's something I'll have to look into. For me, I have a similar experience to you, Paul. Uh, Basically, the extent of my 2D platformer experience from my childhood was going to my Nana's house, and she had a N64 in the basement with Super Mario Bros. And me and my brother would just play that every time we were over there. Uh, and it's funny, you think back, like I know we've said it a few times, just how bad you are at video games when you're a kid. And I never even came close to beating that game. And talk about a game that has like no mechanics, and it's just repeating the same thing over and over. And even though I probably played that first level hundreds of times, never even came close to even coming close to beating that game.
You talking about
But
Super Mario 64?
I honestly don't know. I was trying to Google it real quick.
That's the 3D
Couldn't
one.
even tell you. No, it was 2D.
Okay.
The first level has like pipe and then Goomba and then pipe and then two Goombas.
And does
something
it have
like that.
the football headed enemy? Football helmet guy?
I don't know. Football. I don't remember a football head guy. I know there was turtles and flying turtles and turtles who threw spikes.
Crabs.
Crabs.
The little ones with spikes on top of them on their shell.
Yep, those. It had those, I think. I don't know, man. It was so long ago. But anyway, what I was saying was just that was the extent of 2D platformers as a kid. And then through my teenager years and young adult years, I was playing mostly Call of Duty and Madden, and didn't really play, a lot of. I didn't play any 2D platformers until we played Cuphead, and really enjoyed Cuphead. Wasn't sure if I'd really enjoy, the 2D platformers where if I enjoyed 2D platformers overall, or if I just liked the challenge of Cuphead. But I can tell now that I really like the genre, and it's something I'm gonna keep playing.
Do you think it's the innate difficulty that you like? Because Celeste, I think, is also a very hard game like Cuphead, just in such a different way.
I know exactly what it is. I love the difficult. I love how the mechanics are simple, so you feel like you're completely in control, but also you have difficult sections that once you complete that section, it's over, and you go on to the next difficult section, and you get that like rush of, uh, you know, completing completing that spot over and over and over again. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like Cuphead. Uh, you take on
Yeah.
a boss, and once you beat it, you can lose 100 times. But once you beat it, you're good. And then in this game, it wasn't a boss gauntlet, but there were just difficult section after difficult section for a whole chapter. And at the end of the chapter, or after each section, it's like, nice, got through that section. I'm at a checkpoint. Nice, got through that section, at another checkpoint. And just being able to get that feeling of accomplishment over and over and over again, I love that. And I just think that in a 2D platformer, with how tight the controls can be and how simple it is, that it doesn't feel like it always feels like I'm in control and I'm the reason I lost. So I think it's like the perfect type of game to do that in. Yeah, so I'll just keep looking for those games because that's like, I don't know, it's like what I want right now. So Celeste was released in 2018 by indie studio Maddie Makes Games. It was released to broad critical acclaim and racked up quite a few indie game awards in that year. 2018, it was the Audience Award at the Independent Games Festival, nominations for Best Indie Game at Golden Joysticks, Game Game for Impact at the Game Awards 2018, Best Independent Game at the Game Awards 2018, Best Independent Game at Titanium Awards 2018, and just a bunch of different nominations in 2018 for indie games, music, uh, excellence in audio, and continued into different game awards in 2019 as well. So really, a lot of people enjoyed this game when it came out, and I mean, this is a game that not only had I heard of prior to joining this podcast, a game that I had planned on playing. So I think for me at least, that's pretty big. I before joining this podcast, I hadn't really heard of that many games. So uh, I think its reach to even casual gamers is out there.
Yeah, John, I don't know how much you know about how much you looked into the development, but I looked into it a little bit. It's actually pretty interesting. So, Maddie Thorson, she's like the game director, and then there was one other person who was the lead programmer. Then they had some other people, artists, help out and stuff, but mainly it was Maddie and her lead programmer making the game. They actually went to a game jam way back in the day, I think 2015 maybe, and they made like the concept of this game in 3 days, like just a little 8-bit platformer. And you can actually find the original version of this game in one of the levels and you can play it. It's a little Easter egg. But they like ironed out like the core concept of the game in just 3 days, and then they built all these awesome levels and really tight platforming, and they were almost ready to release it. But Maddie was going through like some personal stuff, and she really wanted to put in like a strong narrative that reflected some of the personal struggles that she was going through. So they took like the awesome level design that they had and they wove this narrative around it. And
Did you guys find that old computer in there and play through the whole 8-bit game?
yeah, that was one of the things I did. I had to look it up, but it was pretty cool.
Oh, I randomly stumbled on it, and then I was playing it, and I was like, holy shit, how long is this thing? And by then I was already to like 2,500 meters, and I was like, I might as well finish it. But those last levels were freaking hard. But yeah, that was tough. To play through a full game in the middle of a game.
I was just gonna say they did that in the BioShock game that we played too. Whatever that little mini game was called.
Yeah, I didn't find it. There was so much that was just apparently really well hidden in this game because I wasn't fast tracking it. I was taking my time and going through each corridor and trying to get not all the strawberries, but a good amount of them. And I didn't find so many things. There was a lot of hidden items in the game, and I thought that I got one of the B-side cassettes, and I thought that maybe there was like 3 in the whole game, and I find out after I looking it up, there's one in every level. I'm like, how? How did I not accidentally find more than one of these?
Yeah, did you find any of the blue hearts?
I found 2 of them, couldn't get the doors open, so I left.
I got one of them. The other one I found on the last level, but you had to collect like 8 gems to unlock it, so I couldn't get that one. But yeah, and I think I found 2 or 3 of the B-sides just randomly stumbling on it. They're pretty well hidden, but once you know, like, there's a visual tell to what you can break through, and that opened up a lot of the secrets to me.
I didn't notice that visual tell. What did it look like?
It's just depending on what level you're on, it looks different, but it was a little bit more pixelated of a block, and you could break through it, or sometimes it looked black like there was a wall there, but if you walked into it, it would open up to a new area.
Gotcha. All right, so let's get into the music and gameplay, music and art style of Celeste. First item that we got to talk about is the pixel art style of the game. I know a lot of games are done in pixel art even nowadays, and I've seen around people saying that they feel like pixel art is overdone. Like it's not like niche anymore. There's too many games done in pixel art. I haven't played enough games to really have a good opinion on it, but are people getting tired of pixel art, or is this something that is really a non-issue?
I'll just speak for myself. I won't speak for Paul, but for me, I don't really see it as an issue. You kind of know what you're getting into when you buy a game. So if pixel art isn't your jam, you just avoid those games. But it is kind of a trend right now. There is a ton of games that are pixel art, but it just lends itself better to games like these 2D platformers. I mean, would it really look better with a 3D model or I mean, 2D art is cool too, but it's just different, and there's a lot of HD 2D going on now with like the Octopath Traveler games, and that's a trend that's taken off. But yeah, pixel art tickles some people's nostalgia, but for me it's just kind of a visual choice, and it doesn't bother me really one way or another.
Yeah, John, I think of Wargroove when I think of games doing pixel art that's saturated. Wargroove just kind of felt like generic pixel art to me. It didn't really feel special. Whereas a game like Celeste and even Hyperlight Drifter, I think they do a great job of differentiating themselves within the pixel art genre. This game, Hyperlight Drifter, they have such distinct art styles that really set them apart from other pixel art games, in my opinion. And yeah, it definitely plays into nostalgia, some of those old Nintendo Mario games, other genres, other franchises, I mean, the pixel art. But I think this is a stunning game. Looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the point that you made, Jay, that pixel art really lends itself well to a 2D platformer, I think I have to agree with that. Uh, I think most of the 2D platformers I'm looking at playing are pixel art, and I just think that the hitboxes are very clear, and it just lends itself well to it. So I do think that it's a good direction to go. And then we can talk about music.
Well, really quick, John, the hand
Yeah,
drawn art style that they have in Cuphead, and more recently I played Hollow Knight. Like, I think that really lends itself well to 2D platformers as well.
I didn't think about
In
that. Hollow
addition,
Knight's hand drawn.
yeah, just like Cuphead. So just another example of an art style that I think works really well with this genre as well.
Gotcha. I was looking at you brought up Braid before we started the episode, and I was looking at the preview for that on Steam, and I almost laughed a little bit. I wasn't expecting that art style in that game, but it's interesting. It's something different. I don't even know what to
Yeah,
call it. All right, you guys want to get into music then?
let's do it.
All right. So the music in this game. Let me get to.
It fucking slaps.
Yeah. It was all composed by Lena Raine, who was the composer for, and I guess still is the composer for Maddie Makes Games. Um, Consists of 19 different tracks, an hour and a half total track length if you add them all up. So good range of music, and yeah, I'm with you, Jay. I think that it really set the tone for the game. The uh, the areas where you're being chased, it made it feel it brought up the tension. The peaceful areas, it made feel peaceful. I tried to pay attention to the music in this game, and honestly, it was pretty easy to do so because there wasn't much to distract you uh, while you're trying to, jump through the little gaps.
Yeah, I think the music is my favorite part of this game. Really good. I It brought me to where Madeline was, climbing the mountain, and it wasn't annoying, and it overall added to the game's experience. I think this same game, Silent, is a way worse game, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. Like Chapter 7, the soundtrack on that level, you're climbing up to the peak. You can just feel how close you are because of the music. And it just gave me so much energy and is propelling me onward. Like, you can't start Chapter 7 and then put it down. There's just no way to do it. And big part of that is the music on that level.
It's funny you say that, Paul. I started that chapter like really late, like at 11, and kept on going till I beat the game.
Yeah.
Couldn't put it down.
The B-side, so I played a couple of the B-side cassettes, and it's a different soundtrack, which is pretty cool. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the B-sides later, but it is nice that the B-side and the C-side cassette tapes have their own soundtracks for those levels. Pretty cool.
Oh wow. Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Yeah. So it's like triple the amount of music than you get with just the first 7 levels.
Yeah, I didn't even play the B-side, so I honestly have no idea what to even expect from the B-sides. Like I said, I only found one, and I didn't even... Nah, never mind.
I hear they're hard.
They are insanely hard. I can talk about my experience with them now, or I can talk about them later. John, what do you want me to
Nah,
do?
you can talk about them now. We'll get there.
So-
Or we'll get to other stuff.
Yeah, so I spent 6 hours climbing the mountain, and I had played Celeste, I think in 2018 when it came out. So I had a lot of the collectibles from back then. I had several of the B-side cassettes. So I spent 6 hours climbing the mountain, doing the A-sides, and I spent 6 hours playing the B-sides, and I only beat 2 of the B-side levels. I tried 5 of them, but I could only beat Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. They're brutally difficult. Like, the difficulty curve for the B-sides, like, the main game is hard. Call it an 8. The B-side levels are like an 18. They're so demanding, so precise. They're big rooms. There are checkpoints, but they're not that generous, I guess is how I feel about them. Different soundtrack is cool, but what's up?
I was just gonna ask you, are you some kind of god gamer or something?
I just love beating my head against a wall.
6 hours for the A side?
Yeah.
I just looked up my stats. It took me 12 hours on the A side. And I died 2,335 times.
That sounds pretty similar to my first playthrough.
35.
I think it took me around 10, and I had like a couple thousand deaths too.
I probably spent like 2 or 3 hours on that 8-bit game.
That's
It's
how
long.
long it was?
Yeah, I didn't do that.
It never ended.
That's insane.
I found it,
And it was hard.
but yeah, I think my
I
first time,
was-
10 hours sounds about right. 6 hours for this time.
I was 8 hours, 16 minutes, 41 seconds, 2,012 deaths, 32 strawberries. I do like how at the end of the game they showed you exactly what your stats were.
Yeah, I do like a good stat tracker. You're a god gamer too, John. 10 hours?
8 hours.
I guess if you take 8 hours, jeez.
He didn't
If you
spend
take
3
out
hours
your-
playing
if
the
you
8-bit
take out
game.
your 3 hours in the PC, you're at like 9. It's not
Yeah.
that much.
Fair.
And I played this game so fast too. I was going a chapter a day, and then I couldn't get enough, and then I was like 2 or 3 chapters a day, and I beat this in like 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I liked this game.
Yeah. Very rare for me to be the last one to finish a game, but this time.
Alright, let's get into the story. I honestly don't have enough written down for this, but we'll piece it together as we go. Like I said, you're Madeline. You're climbing a literal mountain because you have to. You're battling anxiety and depression on the way, and you encounter both good and bad characters on your climb.
Well, one thing before, like, I have a note, like, what sets Celeste apart from other 2D platformers because, like we've kind of mentioned, it's a pretty saturated genre. I think we joked one time for Fantasy Critic League that John was just going to pick up 2D platformers because critics always score them well because of their nostalgia for them.
I still do that. It's just a good strategy.
I think the thing that really sets Celeste apart is the story it tells. I was thinking about, like, what's the story of some other 2D platformers that I've played? Super Meat Boy, Donkey Kong Country, New Super Mario Bros. Some of those games, like, I couldn't tell you what the story is for any of those games. I think the characterization of Madeline really got me into the story. Like you mentioned, she's dealing with anxiety, depression, some other things I have written down: low self-esteem, self-loathing, panic attacks. She's got like a laundry basket of stuff that's wrong with her, and that really makes it so that everyone can grab onto something, like to grab onto one of those things and connect with her. And I was looking some stuff up about this game, and you can actually go into the menu and you can rename the character from Madeline to whatever you want, which kind of makes, further makes it, if you want, further allows you to put yourself in her shoes as the player character. So to me, it really, even though there's no, skill tree, it really kind of felt like a role-playing game for me, putting myself in Madeline's shoes, climbing this literal mountain and this figurative mountain that is like all these things that we all battle.
Real quick, talking about story. Can we quit it with the Rugrats parents' voice? Like, I'd rather it just be silent than, like, a lot of games do that, and if you're not gonna pay for voice acting, then just keep it silent, man. It's annoying to me.
What was the first game you can remember that did that? For me, I think it was Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, I don't know. The first game.
It's been a thing for a long time. It is annoying, though, for sure.
If you're not going to pay a voice actor, do you pay for, like, reading the lines? Do you pay a voice actor to go, rah, 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 rah?
I don't know how they do it.
I hope not.
But maybe. I mean, it did add a little bit in some of the sections where she was sad or something. You can kind of tell in her wah-wahs, Yeah. But I don't think it's necessary, really.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't add anything.
Well, how are you going to know that they're talking, then?
I don't know.
That's a good point.
How will you differentiate speech with thoughts?
Well, here's the thing. I can't read, so
Yeah, I know.
I need to listen to their want-was to know what they're saying, that they're happy or sad.
I was playing the game with my eyes closed, so I really needed to hear the want-wants.
God Gamer, he played it with his eyes closed and beat it in 6 hours?
All right, John, let's roll on this story train.
I'm trying, but man, I'm not good with stories. I like to just do the quick description, one sentence description, and go, yeah, that's the story, and move on. But let's try to do this. So, you're trying to climb the mountain. You meet an old lady, and she laughs at you, says you're never gonna be able to do this. And then you push on because you have to. And then you start climbing, and you meet Theo. And Theo is a power of good on this journey with you.
It
And
was
then
just like a Chad Instagram model.
Chad Instagram model, and you start climbing the mountain together. And you get to a abandoned hotel where the ghost of Mr. Oshiro is. And Mr. Oshiro's sad because his whole life was this hotel. And it's abandoned, and he's a ghost, and he doesn't even know it. And you try to help him, but no, you've met your dark side already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sleep by the fire, and it's in your dream.
Yeah,
Well,
and your dark side is bad.
Yeah, the dark side, aka Battling. But so in that chapter where you're in the dream world and you meet your dark side, at the end the game really tries to simulate a panic attack. And I have a note that like it goes so far as to let you know that it's simulating a panic attack that it literally calls it out in the cutscene where Madeline's talking to her mom. She literally says like, "Sweetie, I think you're having a panic attack," and she calms her down. And you said when you were talking about the plot, John, in chapter 3 with Mr. Oshiro, Madeline tries to help him. And I just thought it was cool how chapter 2, Madeline's mom is helping her calm down while she's having a panic attack. And then in chapter 3, Madeline is trying to do the same thing for Mr. Oshiro before it backfires because of Madeline. Just thought that was nice writing to kind of connect those two chapters. But from a gameplay perspective, I actually thought chapter 3 was relatively difficult compared to the other chapters. The goop that's on everything that you have to dodge really kind of made things difficult for me. And the platforms where it would be circling around, it goes really fast, and the timing to jump through those platforms is really tight, or you have to wait for what seems like forever to get it right. But it felt really good when you were able to time the jumps in with the circles to go boink, boink, boink through a level. But I thought pretty tough.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts about this game was how it added mechanics each chapter, not just one mechanic, but multiple mechanics each chapter. And then toward the end, you keep building and building with multiple mechanics, and toward the end you're faced with chapters with 15 mechanics, 16 mechanics, and you're just have all of this stuff that you need to master and navigate to be able to get to the top. Yeah, honestly, I went and I wrote down each chapter, like what mechanics were in each one. Didn't really write down much about the story. Not really a story guy.
So I think after the hotel, right, where Mr. Oshiro tries to attack you after Battling insults him, which I think Mr. Oshiro killed himself instead of leaving the hotel because everybody else left and he stayed behind for one last night. You find that in a note he leaves.
Yeah.
And then I think after that you meet up with Chad, Instagram model, and that's on the gondola, right? No, after that is the Crystal Palace, right? Where he turns into a crystal you have to carry.
I think the gondola is before the Crystal Palace, because, like Paul said, it's another one of those. You have a panic attack on the gondola, and he brings you back down, tells you to focus on the feather, and that's where they introduce the feather, and it's like a calming presence to you. And then immediately after, you enter the Crystal Palace, and Chad Instagram model gets frozen in crystal, so he like saved you on the gondola, and then in the next section you have to save him.
Ah, good writing. Yeah. You save Chad, and then I think you fall down the mountain.
Yeah, it does the classic thing that every game about climbing a mountain or a tower does. You're almost at the top, and then you fall back down, and you have to climb back up again.
Classic.
Classic trope.
Yep. And that when you fall down, you're in the depths of your self-loathing and self-pity, and you have to confront it. You have to confront Battlein, and then once you come to peace with her, she actually helps you propel yourself back up the mountain.
Yeah, and I think what's cool too is you're at the bottom of the mountain and you have to confront Battlein, like you said, and you have a pretty long, honestly, I guess, boss fight where you have to keep dashing and jumping into her for what seemed like a really long time. You usually expect a boss fight to be 3 phases or 5 phases, and this was like 20 windows or something, 20 rooms of having to keep attacking her or jumping into her until you finally are able to win, able to defeat your negative thoughts. And I think the cool thing is once you do that and you team up with battling your dark side, you just start climbing the mountain so fast. It took a really long time to get through the first 5 chapters, and you're climbing pretty slowly, and then chapter 6 happens and chapter 7, and you just start climbing 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500, and you're just getting to the top. And honestly, at that point, I wasn't even sure if once I got to the top that was going to be the end of the game, because it just felt so quick.
Yeah, and the climb up is pretty cool too, because you get to see all of those environments that took place in the first 5 chapters, I thought.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack once again slaps on the climb up after you make peace with Battlein.
It's like greatest hits of the levels you went through, right? And coming to peace with your self-doubt that's not holding you back anymore. You get a double dash now, right? So that's pretty cool. And then you super ultra jump with her between the between the levels.
Yeah, I thought that cutscene at the bottom after you win the boss fight against Battlein, I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it had a good message, and my takeaway: we can't leave the past or the negative aspects of ourselves behind. We have to learn to live with the good and bad. We have to accept who we are, like you said. Can't let it hold us back. So, I think the message of this game really resonated with me and is a big part of why I like it so much.
Very powerful.
I feel empowered right now.
And then you reach the top and you have a party with strawberry pie.
Yeah, I love the little credits where you're just walking down the mountain. I thought that was pretty cool. And then that cutscene at the end where you have strawberry pie, and they make the joke about how there's supposed to be strawberries in the pie.
They didn't make that joke for me.
Did you get 0 strawberries?
No, I got strawberries. I saw the cutscene or the granny's there's supposed to be strawberries in the pie. I think if you don't have a certain number, she says that.
Oh, yeah. They just said something like it doesn't taste that good
Yeah. Yeah.
for me.
Oh, so I must have had the least.
0.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be a strawberry in this pie. Unfortunately, we don't have a single one.
I had some strawberries. I didn't have that many though. So she said, you know, there's supposed to be strawberries in this pie, right? Oh, I thought she said that for everybody. That's just like a wacky granny joke. Yeah, it's interesting.
I wonder what she says if you get all the strawberries.
There's too many strawberries in this pie. Or maybe they just compliment your cooking instead of being down on it.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
strawberries.
so when I went to look at how many levels that PC game was, I Googled it and it brought me to Reddit. And in Reddit, the subreddit for Celeste, next to everybody's name, they have how many strawberries they have. So, like, the guy who replied was like, "Hi, guy, 420, 119 strawberries." You know? So, it was kind of cool that they're tracking it, you know, there.
How?
I don't know how.
Oh, okay.
Don't ask me how Reddit works.
All right. Are there any specifically cool or challenging sections you remember from the platforming of the game? I'll start. On the final climb up, flag number 9, I had to turn the game off and come back the next day. And I knew I was so close because there's only, 9, 8, 7, to the top. And that was the one where you had to dash through the 2 rows of spikes. And
I know
they
what you're
had the
talking about.
wall on the right, and the wall was... It was like it was a red herring because I'd always jump to that wall and then there wouldn't be space to get through the little gap. So the first day, I probably played that level for 30 minutes. That level. It's not even a level, it's, 2 jumps. For 30 minutes, couldn't get through there, and then came back and looked at it and beat it in the first, 2 minutes. Because just had to reset and realize what I was doing was completely wrong.
I got stuck on the one, I forget what marker it was, but same level, where the wind's blowing to the right and you dash over, and then there's a disappearing block, and then you have to dash once, grab the thing, dash again. I couldn't figure that out. To just dash once, I kept on trying to double dash, and I was like, this is fucking impossible. But it was midnight, and I was like, I need to beat this game tonight. It was up near the top, maybe it was 7 or something, but I was stuck. But I ended up getting past it and finishing it super late, hence the dark circles under my eyes.
Another one I really liked was the chase sequence in Chapter 2, where I think it might be where you're first introduced to Badeline, or maybe just after. But it really feels like she's chasing you, and then you realize that she's completely following your steps because she is you, she's your dark side. So you had to or I don't know, maybe if you didn't realize that you could still get through it, but you could use that to your advantage because you'd know exactly where she was going to be. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, they made you go back over your steps, and you had to wait for her to get out of the way so that you could jump through there. That was pretty cool too. I liked that whole dream sequence in number 2. It introduced those like night sky bubbles that you could shoot through. And that was pretty fun and cool looking. Just the mechanics overall in this game is what makes it stand out so much. Is it feels like thick and precise, like feels like there's weight behind each jump and dash and movement you do, and it's so precise that whenever I died, it was my fault for sure, or my hand was getting tired.
Yeah.
on the controller.
What did you guys think of the stamina system?
It was fine.
Yeah, it made it so that there was a couple sections where I had to replay it a few times because I ran out of stamina, but the time you get over where you're blinking red and you get that last jump off before you start sliding and you get over the top, felt good.
Yeah, well balanced, I think. Not too long, not too short.
And it makes it so that you don't just have all day to think and to
Contemplate.
relax. Like, there was no relaxing. You gotta go.
Yeah, I looked up a lot of the B-sides to see how some of the people do the later ones that are harder, and they're just so good at managing their stamina. Like, they're just so quick. They just hop from one spot so they never use it. And they can make it so far before it runs out, or they get to a diamond.
Another cool part I thought was the cleaning up the hotel. Each time you could do the paths in any order, and each time you did one, it would close off that area, but the main room would get less cluttered. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many cool ones, like saving Theo, having to get through the temple and not get hit by the squid monsters while also juggling him, chucking him across the room and hitting the buttons that open the door.
Throwing them at the squid monster to knock it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought there was just a lot of really well-made areas and rooms that used all of the mechanics. And like I said earlier, there were so many mechanics. You had springs, you had platforms that moved when you touched them, the night portals that you were talking about, different locked doors where you had to get like multiple keys throughout a room to get that door to open up while an enemy's chasing you. Falling ice platforms, the diamonds that give you more energy, the black fuzz that grows when you walk over areas in the mansion, bubbles that you can jump in and jump out of, clouds that bounce you, wind that blows you around, red bubbles that propel you in a direction until you hit a wall, platforms that move when you dash, the faces that were like coins. I don't know, they reminded me of coins that when you hit them you bounced off and gave you energy back. The feathers, the angry blocks that when you dashed into them would slide in a direction, or slide in the direction that you dashed from. Just so many mechanics, and they just built up throughout the first 5 levels until you get to level 6 and 7 where you have to navigate all of them at the same time, and then with a double dash that just increases the possibilities in the area. So I thought it was really good. It kept me engaged. It kept the game evolving as the chapters kept coming.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I had a note. Madeline only has 4 moves: run, jump, dash, wall climb. But they just put so much stuff, like you just listed off, in the levels. And I don't know, the level design in this game is just amazing. Every area feels so distinct. They kept adding more and more stuff, and you get to the end, and like you said earlier, there's like 17 different things that you're interacting with now to get through the level. And it's just tight. It feels great. Just fantastic.
So, Chapter 8 is locked behind a door that requires 4 hearts to get into. And the crystal hearts, like we said before, they're hidden throughout the levels, and most of them have a puzzle that's required to be able to get through them. I only ended up seeing 2 of the crystal heart puzzles, but wasn't able to solve either. The first one I ran into, I thought it was the only way forward, so I actually looked it up, and it's the only reason I know about the crystal hearts or knew about the crystal hearts during my playthrough. Because I looked it up and it said that I needed to have seen a room with birds earlier in order to open that gate. So I decided just to leave instead of using the solution that was online. So I didn't end up getting any crystal hearts, but Chapter 8's locked behind a door that requires 4. Did any of you, either of you, uh, get into Chapter 8 or even know what's back there?
No, I only had 3.
I just got one crystal heart. It was the one where you have to squat on a block for 5 seconds, and then the background actually becomes the platforms, so you can jump up to it. It was a callback to one of the Mario games where you did that.
Yeah, I'm curious. Nah, do I want to be curious? I don't even know what's in Chapter 8, but there is a small chance I could come back to this game. So maybe I won't look it up. Unless you guys already know.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't. I didn't look it up.
Alright, so that's one thing we won't spoil, I guess. And maybe our viewers will spoil it in the comments. Okay, well, I think that's all I have on Celeste, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we close up.
I don't think so, John.
Cool. Well, with that, I guess it's time to give our final scores on Celeste. Take it away, Paul.
Okay. Yeah. So we've talked about how great this game is. Like, I don't think you heard one complaint from any of us.
Jay didn't like that it was a 2D platformer.
Oh,
And the voice acting.
okay. So a couple nitpicks. But I don't think I have a single complaint about this game. It's a genre that I love and is near and dear to my heart. Some nostalgia just with the pixel art, but I don't know, it's just such a good game. Just truly one of the better games I've played in the last 5 years. It's a game that I would like to unlock Chapter 8 one day and play it. I think it is the epitome of difficult but fair. So for me, Celeste is a 10 out of 10.
Okay, I'll go next. As I already mentioned, 2D platformers aren't my jam. That being said, I can realize that this is a good one of those. And if you're into 2D platformers, you'll like this game. I get it. It was just so tight, and I can see how if you are into this kind of challenge, you would enjoy smashing your face against the wall for a long time. Story was pretty good. Heart-touching, I suppose. So all that being said, I give this game a 8 out of 10.
So, as I've said, 2D platformers are my jam. This game, mechanically, is my perfect game. It's got everything that I want. It has tight jumps, tons of mechanics, makes you feel good every time you get through a section, and short, pretty short checkpoints. Which, if the jumps in between those checkpoints are difficult, like I said earlier, just give me that bump of dopamine every time I get there. Just boom, 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 beat it, beat it, beat it, and I love that. So, for me, mechanically, and that's, in my opinion, the most important thing. Not that I have complaints on anything else, but it's just what I pay attention to the most. This game is a 10 out of 10 for sure.
Some high praise for Celeste.
Well deserved. So, how are we doing the next game?
So this is the end of season 1. We're taking a month off, and join us back in a month's time for season 2 with Paul's pick. Paul's kicking us off.
Yep, so when we come back, we are going to be playing Undertale.
Woo!
Yep, I'm excited to play it. It's a game that I've heard great things about for a long time. Been on my backlog for a long time, and Giants of Backlog are finally going to tackle it.
You've never played Undertale?
No.
Wow. Have you, Jay?
No, I never have. I've bought it.
Me too.
It's on my backlog.
Alright, cool. So with that, we'll be back in a month for season 2 with Paul's pick, Undertale. See y'all there.